Hi, and welcome back to Intro to Biology for Majors, or BIOL 1224. This is your Chapter 47 PowerPoint from Module 5 of your Openstax Biology 2E, Chapter 47, Conservation Biology and Biodiversity. So let's start off with our objectives. So we have three of them. The first is define biodiversity and mass extinction. The second is to recognize threats to biodiversity. And the third is to identify efforts to preserving biodiversity. So let's talk about biodiversity and the biodiversity crisis. So biodiversity exists at multiple levels of organization and is measured in a lot of different ways. The number of described species is estimated to be about 1.5 million, with about 17,000 new species being described each year. Estimates for the total number of species on Earth vary, but are on the order of about 10 million. So this is, once again, biodiversity. So now let's talk a little bit about mass extinctions. So here we have 6 being described. So the first would be extinction, global rate of species extinction, which would have been an ice age. The second could have been drastic drop in oxygen levels. The third, an asteroid, causes increasive volcanic activity. Fourth, we have, it's in debate, but we think massive volcanic eruptions. The fifth we have for the dinosaurs, and just more dinosaurs here, we have the asteroid impact. And sixth, we have Homo sapiens, which is ongoing. So there are 5 mass extinctions with losses of more than 50% of the extant or living species observable in the fossil record. So those are our 5 main impacts right there. So now let's talk about some of the impacts that extinction has on things that we even currently use today, but also the planet in the past. So here we have an example of a medicinal plant. So this is what we call the Madagascar periwinkle. It has various medicinal properties. It's actually a source of what we know now as vincristine, which is a drug used in the treatment of lymphomas and cancer. So here are just some other important compounds and some information about things found naturally in nature that we use today. So humans use many compounds that were first discovered or derived from living organisms as medicines, secondary plant compounds, animal toxins, and antibiotics produced by bacteria and fungi. More medicines are expected to be discovered in nature, and the loss of biodiversity will be an extinction impact that will impact the number of pharmaceuticals and medications available to humans now and in the future. So just some important compounds found naturally are what we say here on the image, drugs made from plants. So we have caffeine, we have nicotine, tobacco, we have foxglove, we have menthol, we have codeine from a poppy. So all of and we also have cocoa. So all of these are naturally occurring compounds that we utilize today and will continue to do so in the future. So now let's talk a little about seed preservation, which is a really interesting topic. So crop diversity, or the diversity of the individual crops that we utilize today, is a requirement for food security, and it's being lost. So for food security, meaning our security knowing that our crops are going to exist. The loss of wild relatives to crops also threatens breeders' abilities to create new varieties. So we talked previously about working within genetics by breeding different types of plants. So the loss of those wild relative plants with human meddling kind of changing those plants, the loss of that is causing issues within breeders' abilities to create varieties of plants. Ecosystems provide ecosystem services that support human agriculture, pollination, nutrient cycling, pest control, and soil development and maintenance. Loss of biodiversity, which would be extinction impacts, threaten these ecosystem services and risks making food production more expensive or even someday impossible. So now let's talk about wild food sources. So wild food sources currently are mainly aquatic, but few are being managed for sustainability, or basically few are being managed to last us very long. Fisheries, which would be those wild food sources, basically catching food straight from the wild, Fisheries' ability to provide protein to human populations is threatened when extinction occurs. So this is one of those extinction impacts we're talking about, is that wild food sources that aren't maintained sustainably for longevity to last us a long time, those food sources are threatened when mass extinction occurs from overhunting. So half of the world's fish population is actually caught by 7 major economies. So this image kind of shows you that. We have Europe, we have Japan, we have mainland China, which literally in this image you can tell is 18 million tons of our wild food source of fisheries. We have South Korea, Russia, we have Republic of China or Taiwan, and then we have the US. So when something goes extinct because of overfishing, maybe somewhere in mainland China or wherever they're at, it's very hard for those populations to recover from overhunting like that and over-harvesting. And that's when mass extinctions occur, which would cause an extinction impact within our ability to collect wild food. So speaking of the need to preserve biodiversity, let's talk about green spaces. So biodiversity may also provide important psychological benefits to humans, which makes sense. A lot of us, when we get outside, we feel a lot better. So additionally, there are moral arguments for the maintenance and maintaining biodiversity. So here I have just a couple images of what we consider green spaces. So like a park here, and then we have another different type of park, a nature preserve here. So green spaces exist all over the city of Tulsa as well, but biodiversity for a lot of us supplies a psychological benefit. So we enjoy going outside, we take a breath of fresh air, take a walk, and we psychologically have a benefit from that green space that we actually walked. So there are moral arguments about maintaining biodiversity, but there are also psychological and physiological reasons for us to maintain natural biodiversity. So now let's talk some more about maintaining and preserving biodiversity. So there are new technological methods such as something called DNA barcoding and information processing and accessibility, which are facilitating and cataloging the planet's biodiversity. So basically assigning what we would know as a barcode to DNA of different living organisms on the planet, cataloging and collecting that planet's biodiversity. So conservation preserves are a major tool in biodiversity protection, so an area of land that's protected, whether state or federally. And then habitat restoration has the potential to restore ecosystems to previous biodiversity levels before species become extinct. So one thing that a lot of people do, and that's actually what this image is over here, is they work to restore habitats that have been either overharvested, overhunted, in order to potentially give rise to that previous biodiversity that died off because of whatever issue was happening. Okay, so now let's talk key takeaways. So biodiversity can be measured in species, genetic, chemical, and ecosystem diversity. That's how ecologists measure it. Mass extinction events with losses of 50% or higher have been described 5 times in our fossil record. Threats to biodiversity include both habitat loss and overharvesting, and efforts to preserve biodiversity include DNA barcoding, conservation, and habitat restoration. So that is the end of your Chapter 47 PowerPoint. If you have any questions, please email me, and if not, that should be the last PowerPoint in the 5th module of this course. Thank you.